Tune in to Heartland for the best in true country music. Relive vintage specials, one-of-a-kind concerts, and country music's earliest videos. Heartland is the heart of country, the only place where you can find country music, country stars, and country lifestyles 24/7. Heartland, the heart of country.
Now on channel 13.2.
Hi, I'm John Mallis. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Tuesday morning. Today we're going to talk about a company that tries to keep us safe, overseas and otherwise, and we'll also talk about TEAR. Are you safe to fly? Do you feel safe getting on an airplane and flying across the country? 436-ME-TV option 11. We're here today with our terrorism expert. Back in a moment. An expert day here on Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this day. Connect with Me is shown, of course, on Me TV Fresno every Monday through Friday. You can watch us on Comcast channel 187 and 43.6 and 13.1. That's live between 10 o'clock in the morning and 11, of course. Then if you want to watch the replay later in the day, you are most certainly welcome to at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube, and 8 o'clock during the evening hours at 4.6 Biz TV. If you want to hit me with a tweet, you can at John Mallos Me TV. Hey, we had some fun here last Thursday on the program because we interviewed Adrian Gomez. Let's put up his picture up on the screen. Now, he is the young man who appeared on Judge Judy. He got into an altercation, I guess fisticuffs you could say. He was on the ground, the one being beaten up by the DuPont family. They showed up on the Judge Judy show. Well, Mr. Gomez got up and slugged the female. He slugged also Danny DuPont, I believe. Anyway, it was all over a disabled parking spot. Okay, how many people were in favor of what he did? Look at that, 12 in favor, 4 against, and 1 was on the fence. That means that 12 of those people favored what Adrian Gomez did. He basically came up and said, hey, what are you doing in that disabled parking spot? Do you have a placard? No. And he started banging on the window, and there the altercation began. And so 12 of you think he did the right thing. One of the callers who was not able to get through to our program left a message on our voicemail. Here's what that person had to say about Adrian Gomez.
Yeah, I'm in favor of what he did, Adrian Gomez. I think more people should stick up for what's happening and follow the rules, and that's why we have the DMV. That's why we have a hand. Thank you.
We had so many calls on that day that, most of you could not get in. We had, I believe, 21 calls all told. During the program, we had 8 calls that were in favor. 1 person was on the fence, and 2 were against what he did. Adrian Gomez will appear again on our program sometime later on in the future to talk about those who park in disabled parking spots once in a while, and yet you do not have that blue placard. It is or placard, I should say. It is a big bone of contention for Adrian Gomez and many of you out there. Apparently, 21 phone calls. All right, time to get to our program today, and we're talking about safety. We're talking about TEAR. We're talking about the fact that, hey, are you safe enough? Do you feel safe enough to jump on an airplane and fly to New York, fly to Dallas, fly to Denver, maybe Chicago, anywhere across this country and across the globe? Did you hear about the story just not long ago where the TSA, was hiring employees to, handle baggage and do other things around the airport and around airplanes that were people that were on a TEAR list? Up to 73 people were on a TEAR list that were working not only for the airlines but at the airports. How does all this happen? Take a look at this report and maybe judge for yourself.
Aviation workers with terror connections working at U.S. airports. The TSA, in charge of vetting these employees, green-lighted at least 73 people with links to terrorism.
These are airport workers, so this really speaks to the issue of the insider threat. TSA's primary way to guard against that is to make sure that these background checks are complete and they're exhaustive. And what this report says is they're not complete, nor are they exhaustive.
According to a Department of Homeland Security Inspector General report, the slip-up is a potential national security risk even the TSA acknowledges. Quote, the individuals were cleared for access to secured airport areas despite representing a potential transportation security threat. They worked for major airlines where airport vendors and other employees with unescorted access to commercial planes, the tarmac, and luggage. The misstep happened because TSA does not have complete access to every agency's terror watch list.
This is a classic example of them not working together as they should. And so who's to blame? TSA and DHS are really at lead here.
The fear, airport workers with terror links could facilitate an insider attack. In a CNN investigation, Drew Griffin uncovered employees with access to airplanes and tarmacs were not screened daily. Although the agency says it ramped up random screening after a baggage handler was caught smuggling guns onto commercial planes in Atlanta. Scrutiny over TSA's vetting process comes after embarrassing news the agency's officers failed to detect weapons and fake explosives almost every time undercover teams put them to the test.
It just points to a larger problem that TSA has in making sure that their operations are running smoothly, and it comes from leadership. And not having a leader in place for some time now, I think, has been detrimental to the agency.
Live in our studio now is Dan Payne. He is our terrorism expert. He also owns a company called Cable Links Construction Group, and you can reach them at the following telephone number at 277-8555. We'll talk about his company today and what they do overseas to try to protect us, and also about the latest terror events. We had something take place in Garland, Texas recently, in Boston, and now this TSA situation, hiring employees that are still on a terror list here in the United States of America. Do you feel safe to fly, to jump on a plane and fly coast to coast or anywhere else in the country? That's the question today. 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back with our guy Dan Payne in just a moment.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money, and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
We're back here on the program on a Tuesday morning. It is Ask an Expert Day. We are here with Dan Payne. Good to have you here.
It's good to be
I know
here,
you're
John.
busy.
Yes.
And I appreciate you coming in.
It's always a pleasure. You know, for you, I'll do anything, John.
Within reason.
Within reason.
That's right. Hey, before I get into the terrorism thing, I do, you've been on here many times, and I do want to give your company a plug because
Sure.
you guys are doing some good things. It's called Cable Links Construction Group. And by the way, you can contact them at 277-8555. Explain what your company does overseas to help the Iraqi army.
Well, we started out as instructors for Lucent Technologies, teaching fiber optics and laser light sources and certification courses, and then started getting involved with installation, and then we started working for Department of Defense and Headquarters Marine Corps. Was gone overseas, helped with security systems, whether it's security on fiber, making sure that fiber is not compromised, or putting in closed circuit TVs or thermal imaging, whatever. We're experts in that, and we can design systems and we can install them, and we've done that a lot.
Thermal imaging, talk to me about that and why that's important in terms of fighting terror.
Well, because, for the longest time, back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, we were using motion detection even over on the border for, illegals trying to come across the border. But then you get coyotes that set off alarms, and you get other animals that set off alarms, and so we started getting into thermal imaging, and then from there found out that we can even do more to see if they're carrying a weapon, because of the contrast in heat. So we found out that it was pretty much the sky was the limit of what you can do with thermal imaging. Our helicopters that you see flying at night have those. We had, unfortunately, a little girl that fell into a canal over by where I live in Old Fig, and they brought the helicopters out right away, and the thermal imaging was going through the canal to find the contrast of the heat from her body to the water. So it's using a lot.
Then,
very accurate, very accurate.
And how does it help those overseas in terms of fighting terror, specifically?
Well, we can track movement. We can see whether it's a large group, a single individual, so we can get a head count of what the threat assessment is. There's a lot that they can do with it, and it's pretty distant. You can do it
and
from
it's all done through heat, right?
Through heat, yeah. And it's funny
amazing.
that in order for us sometimes, because of nighttime or when weather conditions change, a lot of times we'll inject liquid nitrogen into the thermal imaging system so that it really makes heat pronounced, whether it's body heat or ambient air or whatever.
Yeah, because you think of the Middle East, and I've only been to the Middle East one time, but I remember it was devastatingly hot.
Yeah.
It's like a desert there. Basically, it's all desert. You can get dust storms at any time.
Sure.
Heat comes up, flares up. It can get 120 degrees out there. And it can fight through all of that, right? The thermal imaging.
Absolutely. It'll go through dust storms, clouds, stuff that normally the other side of a tree, it'll pick up the thermal imaging, yeah.
And the fiber optics?
The fiber optics, it's a secure source for communication. There's no antennas. It's just a fiber line that's instead of electricity or current going through the line, it's pulses of light. And we can tell immediately anytime somebody tries to touch the cable through vibration that it's just been compromised. You can't cut the cable and tie into it because it's not made that way. So it's very secure, very secure.
Yeah, and your company providing weapons for the Iraqi army. And talk a little bit about what's happened recently, what was in the news. Just, a lot of them gave up their weapons, they walked away from ISIS.
Right.
What do we need to do to kind of change that?
My company partnered with another company, and through my contacts, through the Marine Corps and Department of Defense, we were allowed to provide weapons to the new Iraqi army, which we provided AK-47s and grenade launchers and different things like that. It all went through our State Department. It wasn't just, random. But
does it always have to go through the State Department?
If it's with the U.S., it does. With the Army Corps of Engineers and the State Department. And so we provided all these weapons, and what ends up happening a lot of times, and in this case in particular, when ISIS came in to Mosul and overran the town, the city, whatever, they left all the weapons behind. The Iraqi people left all the weapons. So ISIS was equipped with brand new equipment, top of the line, and that happens so often. Unfortunately, it happened to Britain when my company was active in doing the arms dealing. There was only 5 companies allowed worldwide to provide weapons to the new Iraqi army. And what ended up happening was they found some of the 9 mils that Britain was providing to the new Iraqi army. They found it in Al-Qaeda's hands, and so they nixed Britain from providing weapons. Well, it wasn't that Britain was providing weapons to Al-Qaeda. People leave, and they leave everything behind.
That's what happened. That's what happened. But your company, I want to mention, Cable Links Construction Group, only one of 5 companies worldwide to provide these weapons to the Iraqi army. And let's hope that they can use them. And I can't fault them in a way for walking away and facing ISIS, tough group to face, and we need troops on the ground to fight them head on to get rid of them.
And we've terminated that portion of our company. We no longer do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny that there's millions of people appreciate that you're doing that, and there's an equal amount of people that,
that don't
like the fact that you're doing that. So we're out of it. We haven't provided weapons in years now, but we're still in the know of what's going on out there, and we've been asked, you know, would we consider doing it again? And
the answer's no.
No,
always no.
Yeah, we're back to
because you're afraid it might fall in the wrong hands again.
Yeah,
probably.
that is, plus the security, you know, for your family, the security for your employees. You know, not all my employees are involved in that. There was only a couple of us who were directly involved. So the rest of my employees get put in harm's way for, you know, they think they're just joining a regular construction company installing, you know, security systems or whatever, you know, and all of a sudden this is happening. So it wasn't our main wheel of focus for our company. We were just trying to do what was right and help out.
Your main focus now is
electrical and you know, doing the low voltage security and things like that. Yeah.
All right, Dan Payne, our expert, terrorism expert here on the program today, 436-MeTV, option 11. If you want to contact Dan and his company for anything, it's 277-8555. Back with our program, we'll discuss all the goings-on in terms of terror around this country and around the world. I'm surprised at how many events that we've foiled, people trying to attack us, and we've actually stopped it. It's amazing. Back in just a moment.
Take a look at this. Let's play.
This is too hip for you. I'll slow it down.
Let's play.
Watch all your favorite classic game shows on Buzzer TV, KBBC Digital Channel 13.7.
Back here on the program, the question is, are you safe to fly? Hey, how about the second half of that question, maybe the most important part? Do you feel safe to fly? Because let me tell you something, if you don't feel safe to fly, you're not going to. That's going to affect business. We do have a phone call here for Dan Payne, our terrorism expert. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
Oh, yes. Let me ask, I believe it's Dan, his name?
Dan Payne, yeah.
A direct question now. The employees that are supposed to be screened and whatnot to work in airports and all that, that's, you know, I never thought it would be like that. Like 30 years ago, you didn't have that problem where you had screens and all that. You just go through and make sure your passport and whatnot, like going to Mexico and all that. But Mexico's gone so erratic anyway, so we don't do that anymore. But let me ask you, why don't they get TSA employees that came out of the service to protect us? Because I would feel more safer with them. I'm not criticizing the ones that are working out, especially retirees or whatever, but I would feel more safe because they've gone through the ropes, they've been screened well, and they've been through the trenches, as we would say, and your company seems to have gone through every trench, you know, and there's no perfect way of catching the bad guys, you know, taking guns and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a profit for, you know, underground and whatnot. But
can I ask
at the
you,
same
sir?
time, I would feel.
Can I ask you? No, I just want to ask you a quick question. Do you have a question for our guest today, Dan Payne?
Yeah, Dan. How did you get into your field of you know, being well known, you know, as far as protecting, you know, protecting us? You know?
Well, that's a good question. I'm a retired Marine officer. I spent 23 years in the Marine Corps. The last portion of my career was in the Middle East, in Saudi, Kuwait, Iraq, and then continued relations with the Middle East. I was one of the only companies that was allowed to deal with Lebanon and providing weapons for them as well. and then moved on to Yemen with the Yemenis people. So it just kind of evolves. It's not what you think you're going to start out doing. You get involved with it. You gain the confidence of your own government, and then you gain the confidence of other governments as well.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for the call. Quickly, before we start talking about the TSA, and we've got some local video here that, because we had the local TSA people on this program, and forgive me, I have no idea when that was. It was recently.
Sure.
It was either earlier this year or last year, but
okay.
I just can't remember. But what's that? January or February. See,
there you go.
I'm getting old, Dan.
Well, you do these shows all the time.
I know. I just can't remember. But I want to ask you about the civil war in Yemen. I read about it. I hear about it. You're an expert in the Middle East. You've been there. You worked there. What's really going on?
There's, you know, it's you can't really put your finger on any one thing in particular. The mood of the people change, whether it's the Druze or the Sunnis or whoever. You know, here's a thing that happens, and it's a perfect example of, you know, what is the temperature in the Middle East. For decades, the U.S. has always thought that the enemies of our enemies are our friends. So understand that the enemies of our enemies are our friends.
Got it.
We treat them as our friends. So we arm them, we train them, we run exercises with them and teach them all these different types of military tactics and all. And almost always, it's those same people that end up fighting us. And it's happening right now. Exactly right now. We armed and trained people in Libya. We armed and trained people in Syria.
Afghanistan.
And Afghanistan. And they were supposed to help us keep peace in Afghanistan. They were supposed to help us, keep Gaddafi under, some kind of control. And we're finding that these same people are doing interviews saying, I got my weapons and training from the U.S. and now I'm fighting this evil Western belief. Yeah. So anything can change the mood there. The Sunnis or the Druze were 20 Druze were just killed by one of these offshoots of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and now the Druze want to go to war over this situation. So things change overnight.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. I remember on
How about Pakistan? Are they our friends? Or maybe not.
Maybe not. Right now, right now we're doing okay. I remember a Sunday morning, I was getting ready to go to church, and my phone's ringing, and I just said, well, I'll get it later. So I go to church, my phone's ringing like crazy.
Yeah.
So I get out of church, and I go in the lobby, and it's the State Department. And the State Department says, cease all transactions with whatever country I was doing business with at the time, and said until you're told to do so later, which we
further notice.
Yeah, and we never were. We were always just told that's it, no more.
Yeah.
So things change in a heartbeat. It's hard to put your finger. You got to understand that in the Middle East, it's me and my cousin, or it's me and my brother against my cousin, me and my cousin against the world. So the feelings change. They do have a tightness. They do have this bond there, but it can change in a heartbeat.
Yeah. We're talking with Dan Payne, our terrorism expert. He owns a company, Cable Links Construction Group. 277-8555 is the number if you want to contact him. 436-MeTV, option 11 if you want to call in here. So what about all these little terror cells, these little groups that are here in the United States? They're handling your baggage when you get on an airplane to fly to Dallas or to Denver or to New York. That's right. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break, I promise, with Dan Payne, our terrorism expert, in just a moment.
It's almost time.
Now we'll find out once and for all about Clark Kent and Superman.
Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's a TV show.
Yes, but who is he? What's his name?
He's Superman.
Golly, Clark, won't that be wonderful seeing Superman
Fighting a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and television the Me TV way.
No one can do the things that Superman does.
The adventures of Superman.
Now on Me TV Fresno, Xfinity 187.
You know, these terrorists, I was just telling Dan, these terrorists, they don't care. They'll go down with the plane. They don't care what they put on a plane, how they take it down. They'll take a cell phone just like this, turn it into a bomb. I want to roll the videotape of the local TSA right here because they were guests on this program earlier this year. Local TSA working our Fresno International Airport. And Dan, I got to ask you, this, not too many things surprise me or blow me out of my seat. But when I mean, up to 73 people working for the TSA that are on a terror watch list in this country, I'm thinking, what is going on? I was outraged.
Well,
what's going on?
First of all, a lot of these lists are new. It's not like you can go on the internet and punch up terrorist lists. And we're not well known for our interagency communications, whether it's CIA, Homeland Security, FBI. You know, sometimes, you know, they like to hoard their information and not share it with others. So I believe TSA, if they had better access, they could probably do a better job at it. But what I do question with TSA is what drives TSA and what drives their behavior, their actions, or their standard operating procedures. Because here you are going through the line and all these issues of take off your shoes, do this, do that, or pay $85 a year and bypass that. You can pay $85 and be on their fast track, and you can keep your shoes on, you can keep your belt on, you can keep your coat on, and then all you do is walk through the x-ray machine, and you're not in the line anymore.
Makes me not want to fly. So if I'm a terrorist, okay, and I want to take down a plane, all I have to do is fork over $85, go through the fast track. They don't check my shoes. I don't have to take my belt off. I don't have to be, do I have to be x-rayed?
Yeah, you still walk through the
x-ray machine, but I don't get the scrutiny or the twice over the way you might.
Right.
And I'm through the gate.
Right. And if this guy is going to give up his life on an airplane, is $85 mean anything? It's not like he needs to save his money to, you know, send his kid to college or whatever. So it's amazing. So it makes me think, what are we driven by?
So the question is this a national security risk, having these 73 workers throughout the country handling baggage, checking the planes, fueling the planes, doing whatever they're doing? Maybe they're at the checkout counter. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, if we know that they are connected in some way to a terrorist group, that's one thing. But what about, you know, yeah, I think the odds are a little bit more that if something's going to go wrong, it's probably going to be one of these 73 people who are trained or whatever. But we still have the person who has a bad day, a guy who snaps, a guy who didn't take his medication, that works for TSA and can go off as well. That's in any line of work that can happen.
Do we have that here, by the way?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So, you know, I think the TSA does as good a job as they possibly can, given the information that they have. You're not going to catch absolutely everybody. I don't think any organization is 100% foolproof.
So two quick other things. Not a big national security risk, having these 73 people?
Oh, yeah, it's still a risk.
It's still a
Absolutely,
risk. Big risk. And it's because TSA does not communicate, or they're not in communication with, say, Homeland Security or CIA or the FBI or any of these other agencies. Is just a lack of communication?
Well, I don't think that...
Lack of sharing information.
Right. I don't think that that FBI would purposely withhold any information from them. But I would say that some of these organizations like to keep their information, they're guarded, and it's not for everyone to see. And you would think that the TSA would be included in that circle of trust, and that they would be able to get that information. But even as TSA said in the clip that you showed, they don't have access to every list that's out there.
They do not, and I don't know whose fault that is.
Right.
How do you solve? I guess Congress and the president would have to solve that.
Yeah, they'd have to get involved and say that these guys have priority to getting that information.
But the TSA did fail to detect all those weapons. You see all those weapons?
Right. Yeah, I know.
That's a little
amazing.
disturbing.
It is, and they do. They have people that are part of. Their plants, and they go through and they purposely try to get something passed and seen if they can get it or not.
All right. Caller, are you there? Go ahead.
Yes, I am. Why not eliminate the, bags that you carry on? If you truly want to stop it, you can just eliminate all bags carried on, have them go through put the stuff in the belly of the plane, and walk through the X-ray machine, and that's it. And then also look at those who are known terrorists or terrorists have leanings, which they would go and scrutinize more than just the 76-year-old grandmother. I don't understand that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's my question.
Good questions. First of all, there's a lot of people who they're not spending the night. They're just flying for a meeting and then coming right back. So they might have a laptop computer, or they might just have a medicine bag to carry, whether they have insulin or whatever else.
Can you ban that?
You can't. I don't think you can.
Ban that.
No.
Yeah. You can't ban the medicine. Maybe the laptop.
Maybe the laptop you can. Cameras, any kind of electrical device. But then there's always, the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber. Once it's not like they don't have options. If you remove this option, they just create another one. The other question he talked about. Why don't you ban things like this, and then why don't you just keep an eye out for known terrorists? They change their names like we change our underwear.
A terrorist could walk on a plane dressed like I am right now.
That's right.
This tie could be a bomb. This coat could be a bomb.
That's right.
I mean, they can turn any piece of clothing into a bomb.
Absolutely, and they're going to hide their identity. They're not. They're not going to be, as out in the open as we think they would be.
No, they're not going to look like Muhammad Atta.
That's right. Exactly.
They're going to look like any one of us. They could look like anything. So, 436 Me TV option 11. We're back with Dan Payne, our terrorism expert, in a moment.
We need help to find this missing child. Erica Parsons was 13 when she disappeared. She was last seen in Salisbury, North Carolina in November of 2011. This is what we believe she looks like today at age 16. If you have any information, please call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678.
Back here with Dan Payne, our terrorism expert. He owns a company, Cable Links Construction Group, and you can contact Dan if you want at 277-8555 if you have any security concerns at your company. By the way, recently, we talking about all these foiled plots around the country. Just recently, there was one in Boston where this one suspect, I guess he had, he was an ISIS sympathizer, and he wanted to turn on police, the men and women in blue. In fact, he wanted to behead a policeman. He was shot by a Boston police officer. I want you to take a look at this clip and figure out for yourself how lucky we were to catch this guy and shoot him before he did any damage.
New details today reveal that police were concerned about threats to kill law enforcement and government officials. Authorities arrested this man, David Wright, in connection to the case. He appeared in court this afternoon. Neighbors describe him as a cold and eerie person.
The months that we have been here, every time, we would say hi, he just would look at you. He just would not say anything to you. It's just very eerie.
Law enforcement officials said Wright associated with Usama Rahim, who was killed yesterday in a confrontation with law enforcement. A late-night raid on a home in Rhode Island now connects a third person believed to be associated with Wright and Rahim. Officials say he has not been arrested. Rahim has been monitored for over 2 years and believed to have been radicalized by ISIS. Believing he was an imminent threat, FBI put him under 24/7 surveillance.
24/7 coverage typically means we are very, very concerned about this threat. We have to determine with immediacy whether it's real or whether it's not.
A recent change in Rahim's behavior, which included social media threats against police, prompted FBI agents to confront him. Officials say as officers and FBI agents approached Rahim, he suddenly turned around with a large black knife and lunged at the officers. He was ordered to drop the weapon before officers opened fire, killing him.
This guy required 24/7 surveillance, so we thought the threat was severe enough that we had to approach him. We never expected what happened.
The shooting was captured by surveillance video and observed by witnesses. In an unprecedented move, the Boston police and FBI gathered community leaders to view a surveillance tape showing the shooting.
We've made it clear we're going to release video, and I think that at least dispels some of the rumors, some of the tensions that might build.
So the charges facing David Wright, who just appeared in court, are conspiracy to destroy Rahim's smartphone to impede an investigation. He faces 5 years in prison. We know that right now, as we speak, the FBI is investigating any other associates who may have been tied to this group.
Yeah, and so that was the report that took place in Boston, Dan. I want to put up the picture of this guy, Osama Rahim, shot and killed by police on June 2nd. He pulled out a knife. Officers simply shot him. He was an ISIS sympathizer. He said he wanted to go out and behead a police officer. For what reason? I don't know. I mean, how do we know?
We don't. There's whatever voices are in their head, that's telling them to do what they're doing. They're trying to gain favor. A lot of these guys, psychologically are looking to belong to something of importance and feel important, and they do something like this. He may have not been directly contacted by any kind of a group, but I know for a fact that we have way over 100 people in the United States that have actually gone to ISIS terrorist training camps and now reside in the United States. Overseas, and now reside in the United States and are in constant surveillance. You heard the police officer say this guy is on watch 24/7. We have that. We're not as safe as people want to believe we are. I don't want to start a panic as well, but we know we have people that have gone to camps and are here in the United States, and we don't know what their mindset is. We don't know if they got turned off by what they experienced in a camp, or if they're even more motivated to do what they think they need to do.
And look at this, a young guy, he just wasted his life is gone, a wasted life. I want to put up a picture of David Wright because he was arrested on June 2nd. Already appeared in court. He's going back. And then Nicholas Rovinsky. He was arrested last Thursday and appeared before a U.S. magistrate. There he is right there. Both are accused of conspiracy to provide material support to ISIS, and they conspired with Rahim to carry out these attacks here in this country. So the plan altogether was to take someone down. Anyone. Doesn't matter who.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a person of, that holds a title or whatever. I don't want to say of no significance, because every life is significant, but you would think that if these guys are terrorists or following a terrorist plot or plan or whatever, that they would maybe do an elected official or do somebody of high visibility, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that.
Are we lucky that we foiled this?
Oh, absolutely.
Or was it skill?
It's skill, but we're lucky that they were able to do it, because timing is everything. We had an incident in Fort Riley, Kansas.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but go ahead.
Yeah, where that was lucky, because the person's friend or brother-in-law, I can't remember who it was, called officials and alerted him that he is on his way with bombs in his car. And he had access to the base.
I hope that this doesn't create a false sense of security that we foiled a lot of these. And as long as we got some time here before we go to break, let's go to the picture of John T. Booker, because that's the guy in Fort Riley right there that you were talking about, 20 years old, arrested and charged with plotting to set off a suicide car bomb on the military base at Fort Riley. Is this going to present to us a false sense of security that, man, we're good, no one's going to attack us, we're safe, we're sound? To the general public, the message out there is, don't worry, we got you covered. Is that a false sense of security?
It is a false sense of security, and we rely on the good people of the United States to come forth with any information that they have. And a lot of the information we get is from people who say, hey, I think this guy needs to be watched, I think this guy is up to something. A lot of that pays off. You know, I don't want to send a sense of panic throughout the U.S., but we all need to be vigilant. We all need to be a helping hand, and if there is something that we can help with information-wise, it may seem insignificant to us, or you know, that I don't want to waste anyone's time, but it could actually foil a major operation.
Quickly, I want to put John T. Booker's photo up once again, because I want to mention the fact that Booker enlisted last year into the military. He was on Facebook a lot, social media, said he wanted to wage jihad against our government and against the military base. He bought bomb-making materials, rented a storage locker. Boy, what does that take, right, Dan? He made a video saying he is acting in the name of ISIS. Wow. Wow. That's all I have to say.
Sure.
Wow. That's amazing.
And you know, luckily for us that the guy was broadcasting enough that you know, that somebody saw it and decided to make a phone call to the base and let them know, hey, this guy's on his way. And I think
that's what happened?
Yeah, and that's what happened.
This could have
been
it was big, huh?
Yeah, it was during normal working hours. It was during the day. It wasn't like early morning, late at night. And they caught him at the gate. They were able to stop him at the gate. But, you know, this goes on all the time. I got to tip my hat to Homeland Security, FBI, CIA, NSA, all these organizations, and our local law enforcement. You know, you see tension rising with our law enforcement, and they're a little bit more aggressive. You know, they're also tasked with this as well. So not only do they have their normal everyday stuff that they got to work with, but now they get this terrorism thrown in their lap too. Their plate is full.
Got to go to break. Dan Payne is here from Cable Links Construction Group. You can contact him at 277-8555. If you have any security concerns, you can contact us. Got an open line, 436-MeTV option 11. Back in a moment.
Is taking care of laundry taking too much of your time? Have you become a missing mom? With a new fast, efficient washer and dryer from Ventura TV Video Appliance, you'll spend more of your day the way you want. Save now on Frigidaire's Advanced Affinity Laundry Pair. Let Frigidaire save you energy, water, and time. Don't spend your life on laundry. Upgrade today at Ventura TV Video Appliance and save.
There's no doubt that it saved lives.
High praise tonight for the traffic cop turned hero, who authorities say used his handgun to stop two gunmen wearing body armor and armed with assault weapons.
He did what he was trained to do, and under the fire that he was put under, he did a very good job.
Police say the men drove up to this community center northeast of Dallas and got out of this black sedan.
Both of them had assault rifles, came around the back of the car and started shooting at the police car. The police officer in that car began returning fire and struck both men, taking them down. We think their strategy was to get to the event center, into the event center, and they were not able to get past that outer perimeter that we had set up.
The encounter lasted about 15 seconds and ended with both men dead. An unarmed security guard was also shot in the ankle. The shooting happened just as a controversial cartoon drawing contest of the Prophet Muhammad was wrapping up. Some 200 people were at the event. None of them was hurt.
And the police came in and put us all into lockdown. And so, of course, this terrible incident reflects the need for such conferences. It's illustrative of the violent assault on the freedom of speech.
The Council on American Islamic Relations released a statement condemning the attack, saying in part, "We also reiterate our view that violence in response to anti-Islam programs like the one in Garland is more insulting to our faith than any cartoon, however defamatory. Bigoted speech can never be an excuse for violence." Meanwhile, authorities in Texas spent the day combing the scene for evidence. No explosives were found inside the vehicle, only luggage. One of the gunmen, identified by a federal law enforcement source as Elton Simpson, tweeted his allegiance to ISIS ahead of the attack. He also linked himself to a known British ISIS fighter. Sources tell CNN authorities believe Simpson shared an apartment in Phoenix, Arizona with a second gunman, Nadir Sufi.
All right, this was another case. Would you call it luck, or would you call it skill?
No, I think it's one of those things where you say, okay, we're going to be doing cartoon drawings of Muhammad. You know, this is kind of a magnet for, you know, bringing, you know, this type of action. Some of these people create their own situations.
You're talking about Pamela Geller.
Correct.
She is a conservative blogger, and she was going to be at this event where they were going to, I guess, feature some cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. These two ISIS sympathizers, I guess, were going to go into the event center and gun everybody down.
Right.
And before they did, they were gunned down themselves by police.
Right. Well, you know, they I don't know what their plan was, but shooting an unarmed security guard that is also beefed up with armed police officers is not a really good plan. And so they shoot this unarmed security guard. One says in the ankle, one says it was in the leg.
Yeah.
But they take him down and draw attention, and now. And who knows? Maybe he was saying, you don't have a band, you don't have access, what's the deal, you know?
Well, and the one guy, I should correct myself, because the one suspect in Garland, Texas, Elton Simpson, he liked himself to ISIS on social media.
Right.
Okay. And by the way, we have software that can detect that if you're talking to ISIS.
We have, you know, the Patriot Act and all that automatically. Okay. And for years, we've had it before it was signed by Bush, that if people made certain comments about the president or high officials, that it triggered some kind of surveillance at that point.
All right, and the other suspect was Nadir Sufi. He was not well known. He was kind of off the radar, but he was roommates with Simpson, and there were about 200 people at this event. And so it brings up, by the way, Simpson was on 3-year probation for a prior related terror charge. But it begs the question, false sense of security just because we foiled this one?
I hope not. I don't want people to think, again, you know, if people knew what was going on every day and the action that goes on between all these agencies and what they're doing, I mean, they are.
What's it like behind the scenes? Is it just chaos?
Just about. I mean, it is. They have to go. They only have. In many cases, they only have minutes to figure out, is this a viable threat, or is it just somebody blowing off steam, someone asking for attention, you know, whatever. I mean, and they got to figure all this stuff out really quick.
What are they doing? Are they sitting there in a room looking at a screen? Computer screens, and they're detecting all this stuff?
That's one of the ways that they handle it. The other ways is there's people that they know of that have gone to camp and back in the U.S., so they're watching them and they're under constant surveillance.
They got listening devices? Or?
When I was doing weapons, there was people in front of my house in cars, and I got questioned by Department of Justice, and they had pictures of me coming in and out of different buildings and all. There's all this stuff is going on all the
see on TV.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you're like, well, okay.
There's Dan Payne walking out of Building 1.
Exactly.
There he was on March the 7th walking out of Building 2.
Yeah.
He's wearing a different suit and tie there.
Exactly. And I appreciate that. I really
it's
do.
Okay. I mean, they can do it to me all they want because I have nothing to hide.
Exactly. And neither do I. And I'm thinking, heck, if they're watching me, if something's going to happen, I hope they're watching that as well.
Hey, before we go to break, can I put up the full screen before we go to break? Because I want to tease this. Let's put up the Malaysia flight 370, my friends. This thing disappeared last year on March the 8th. Took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, headed to Beijing, China, missing over the South China Sea. We're going to talk about this When we come back, there were 11 or 10 other events, 10 other missing planes that we want to talk about that just went missing for some reason or other over the course of time. All right, back with you and your phone calls, 436-ME-TV, option 11. Back in a moment.
Retro TV, your home for classic television. The greatest shows in history are here for you to enjoy. Join Cosby and Colt as secret agent men in I Spy. Ride along the Ponderosa with the Cartwrights in Bonanza. Hit the beat with Joe Friday in Dragnet. And that's not all. Retro TV offers endless fun and excitement for the whole family to enjoy. Retro TV, the best in classic television.
You can find Retro TV on over-the-air channel 13.4.
Back here on the program, Connect with Me, just talking about the Boston thing. But can you imagine had that guy beheaded a police officer in Boston? Had someone not shot him?
Right.
It would have been horrible.
Yeah, that gruesome, yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah, and
Could
for
happen.
what reason?
Yeah, just for what? I don't know.
And why, and that poor officer, he had, the only thing he did wrong was put a uniform on that day and be singled out.
Amazing. Hey, let's put up the Malaysia Flight 370. Went missing March the 8th, 2014. As you know, it still has not been found. And we're going to put up a series of a number of other planes, 10 others that went missing over the course of time. You think this plane's going to come out of the woodwork someday and be used against us in a terror attack? I think this plane is still around?
I do. Yes, I do.
Where could it be hiding? I mean, who could have... Someone had to see this darn plane land somewhere.
Well, if you're thinking radar would have picked it up or a satellite, satellites only get activated to look at things when they're told to do so. Otherwise, they're just up in the air and taking Google pictures or whatever else. And if an aircraft is flown, where it was flying was surrounded by water. Water was everywhere. I know in the military years ago, if we were tracking an aircraft and it got within a certain elevation from the water, we lose it because of the reflection and everything else. So
could this plane have landed in the water and we didn't even know it?
No, I think it landed, honestly, I think it landed in maybe North Vietnam or
Someone
in southern
had to
Vietnam.
see it.
Absolutely.
But they're not talking.
They're not talking,
Wow.
And like you said, there's a bunch of other aircraft that are missing as well.
Yeah, let's go not 1 to 10, but let's start from number 10 and go and move on down the list. So let's put number 10 up on the screen. There it is. A 20-year-old Australian pilot, Frederick Valentic, was flying a Cessna 18-2L light aircraft, and it went missing over Australia in 1978, I believe. I'm reading that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
He advised Melbourne Air Traffic Control that he was being accompanied by a UFO. So that's one, Dan, but I don't know that you can link that to terrorism. Could you, possibly? Could that plane still be somewhere in sight, somewhere?
It could. It's a benign plane, a 182 Cessna. There's a bazillion of those. It's kind of a beginner aircraft, 150 and a 170, whatever, and then 182. I think it's a 182 is a 4-seater. And it's still in the beginning, people who are beginning pilots. So you see these a lot. You'll see it in the Fresno airport, and you'll see it at Chandler. There's a lot of these. They come and go like crazy, and since they're beginners, the tower knows that a lot of times they don't have the experience to talk with the tower, so it's easier to sneak a plane like this in.
And the thing is, terror groups can take 100 of these planes,
Right.
these Cessnas, and create havoc all over the place.
Right.
You could have 100 different attacks in one of these planes, and nobody would expect it from a small plane like that, right?
Right.
All right, let's put up number 9, if you will. Right there, this happened, it vanished in the Angolan capital of Luanda. The plane was stolen from, I can't quite see that, but it happened in 2003. A massive worldwide search prompted by the FBI and the CIA. Plane is still missing.
Right, and that was in 2003.
Yeah, still missing.
A 727 is a pretty big
That's a
jet.
gigantic plane.
Yeah.
Gigantic plane. My goodness gracious. How could this happen? Right, is it like Flight 370?
Yeah.
It's somewhere. It landed in North Vietnam.
I think I think we're going to see these aircraft again, John. I really do.
No, but I wonder, Dan. I've only got about 4 minutes, and we got to put these up. I wonder if there's one central location where these planes are going.
No, I think they're scattered all over because they're going to be fueled, and they can only travel so far, and they're closer to their targets.
Let's go to number 8, I believe. Let's go to this one, Flight 2501. I can barely see that without my glasses. Transcontinental service between New York City
and Seattle.
Okay, 1950. But this was a long time ago. So I'd say this one probably not.
No.
Right? I doubt it. Let's go to number 7, if you will. We'll just go through these one at a time. When did this take place? 1979. So here's another one. Possibility? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's go to number 6. We're just kind of showing that these planes, over the course of time, this happened in 1938, went missing for whatever reason. But back then, like in 1938, terrorism was not on the minds of people anywhere around the world, was it?
No. Not back then, no. Although, we had the big communist scare, didn't come out until 50s and 60s. But back then, no, there wasn't a lot of...
Let's go to number 5 real quick. When did this take place? 1953. So we'll go to number 4. I know we're going through these very quickly.
83.
There's a lot to... So that could have been possibly one.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly. Number 3, if we could put that up, there's a lot to read there, and I'm sorry to the viewers at home. We're having to look at this really quick. But what's the year on this one?
That's 40.
1948. 1948. And number 2, please, 1945.
But that's 5 U.S. Navy Avenger planes.
Yeah, so it's not linked to terrorism. And then, of course, the big one, Amelia Earhart, we know about that. Read about her in school, by the way, and nothing to do with terrorism here, I don't think. But how do you explain all these disappearances? You can't explain it?
No, I think some of them are flukes, and I think some of them we need to be concerned with. The Malaysia flight, some of your newer aircraft, the Cessna, that's a benign aircraft that people would never suspect anything of, but it could take out a bridge, it could take out a stadium, whatever. There's so much capability that any of these aircraft can do.
And I want to put up Malaysia Flight 370 one more time and ask you a quick question. Mm-hmm. If somebody does put this plane back into use, radar more than likely would detect it or not?
Right, it will.
It will?
Yeah.
So then what?
Well, it depends. If it doesn't...
Does the military take it down?
They will when it doesn't respond enough. Although, remember, this was one of the most... Boeing made this aircraft, and it was equipped with the latest technology. In fact, Boeing didn't even want to put that technology in this plane because they said that this is putting a lot of eggs in a basket here.
And giving away too many secrets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, boom, now it's gone.
Yeah. Dan, sadly, we're out of time.
Sure.
But we always enjoy you coming on the program.
It's always a pleasure.
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry we went through those planes really quickly.
No. I think it's important. I think it really is. I think we need to be watchful.
Okay, come back again.
I will.
Appreciate it. Dan Payne, our terrorism expert. He is with Cable Links Construction Group, 277-8555. We're back tomorrow with another program here on Connect with Me on Me TV Fresno. Have a great day.
The Ballad of Andy and Barney. Andy and Barney were lawmen, bravest you ever did see. Warned every crook in the record book to stay out of Mayberry. They were the law.
Yes, they were the law, and they didn't know fear.
The Andy Griffith Show.
I guess to sum it up, you could say there's 3 reasons why there's so little crime in Mayberry. There's Andy, and there's me, and baby makes 3.
Now on Me TV Fresno.